in the first response from a senior government minister on the sinking of the Iranian warship, because there's a massive political slugfest which is also alternative happening when it comes to the sinking of the Iranian ship. There is obviously two-pronged politics which is happening. What has happened on that front? The External Affairs Minister has spoken out. He's confirmed that one Iranian vessel basically had sought and received permission to dock in India, while another, that IRIS Dana, which was caught on the wrong side of events near Sri Lanka. Explaining the facts, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar also delivered a sharp rebuttal to the ecosystem. Listen into what he had to say.
I think there's a lot of social media debates going on this. Social media, by its very nature, is a forum for very sharp, angular, sometimes extreme expression of views. I mean, people have a right to express that. But there is, I mean, please understand the reality of the Indian Ocean. I mean, the Diego Garcia has been in the Indian Ocean for last 5 decades. It's not something which happened last week or last month. There are other, Djibouti. The fact there are foreign forces based in Djibouti happened in the early first decade of this century. Hambantota came up during this period. So the idea that, somehow the Indian Ocean is limited to only the countries of the Indian Ocean, others aren't there. The Fifth Fleet is based in Bahrain. So I think people, I mean, if you're asking me a serious question, I'd give you a serious reply. If you're asking me a non-serious question, I think I'll leave it.
This is a non-serious question, that we are not the net security provider of the region, or are we rethinking that position?
No, it is. I think any serious question has to take into account what is the ground or the water situation out there.
Yeah.
All right, my colleague Rishabh is joining us on the phone line. Rishabh, help us understand really, how are we to interpret and understand the statement which have been made by the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. Very significant statement when he highlights, the important significance of Indian Ocean, and also talking about how, end of the day, there is global presence in the Indian Ocean. How are we to view his statement, given obviously all the politics which is also happening in the backdrop of the sinking of the Iranian ship near Sri Lanka?
Well, what Dr. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister, was trying to suggest that Indian Ocean is a collective responsibility. He actually goes on to mention who all are present in IOR. While India definitely have an edge at IOR, given that India has the capability of having most of the people to come on table, various countries to come on table, but External Affairs Minister did mention that it is also that you should have a collective responsibility, and that is something that he was talking about while there were questions on the Indian Ocean region.
Absolutely. Very, very significant statement. We're also being joined by Major General Dhruv Katoch, a retired defense expert with us. We also have Madhav Nalapad, strategic affairs expert. I welcome both of you on the broadcast. First of all, coming to you, Major General Dhruv Katoch, a very similar question as I was asking my colleague. How do you view the statement by S. Jaishankar, especially when he talks of the Indian Ocean, highlighting the global presence there?
No, I think, firstly, thank you. I think the External Affairs Minister's statement is very significant, and it reflects the Indian reality. Now, we at least claim to be the net security providers, yes. But what does that really mean? If things like, if ships are hijacked, one, or if disaster relief takes place, two, or something like that, we will respond. We will take action. But when two nations are at war, that is a different issue. So in this particular case, if two countries were at war, and while I don't, I don't agree to, or I don't support the U.S. action in hitting a naval ship, which was practically unarmed. But leaving that aside, it was, when we are looking at the Indian Ocean, the free and open navigation and free waters, countries at war will have to look out for themselves. It is the responsibility of the Iranian Navy to have taken appropriate action. Had they asked us for help, we would have kept them in the port. So the Navy chose to move out on their own on the 28th of the month, and they were hit later, I think 4 or 5 days later. So Indian Navy is not responsible to escort those people back to their hometowns. For the American Navy, I think their morality, they have to question themselves. There is a lot of criticism within the US itself as to why an unarmed ship was hit. But it is a warship, and I feel that the Iranians also should have taken protective measures.
But, Professor Nalapad, if you could come in here and be talking about, obviously, the politics also which is happening surrounding the sinking of the Iranian ship in India's backyard. The opposition, while obviously experts also highlighting, taking that thought forward that, Indian Ocean isn't India's at the end of the day. But how do you view, what the opposition obviously has to say at this point of time? Because they are saying that it is India's backyard, and if the war is coming so close to our backyard, perhaps we should have been more aware. They're targeting the government over the same. How do you respond, or how do you view, rather, all the politics which is happening at the moment?
Yeah, look, I'd like to say that while speech is silver, silence can be golden. And in my view, the policy of silence virtually has been adopted by the government of India at the highest level is the correct policy. The fact of the matter is that we have kept our oil prices stable. We have kept prices at the pump stable, in contrast even to the United States, where the price at the pump have gone up, and various other, various other countries that you have very correctly named. The fact of the matter is Iran and the US are in a state of war. There's all is fair in love and war. Well, I think the difference between love and war, but anyway, that's an old saying. This is war. And when this is war, there is no question of protected waters or whatever. The reality of the situation is Iran and the US are effectively at war, and therefore both have the ability to strike at each other. And the US has exercised that ability through sending a torpedo through the Iranian ship and sinking it. I think it was off the Sri Lankan coast, not the Indian coast. At least that small mercy was there. But I would like to say, one can tom and say all kinds of things. But the fact is, what is most important is looking after our people. And when we look after our people, how we do it by making sure prices are stable. And in India, we have kept prices stable. So I think it's very important also to understand that I think both Mossad as well as the Directorate of National Intelligence, DNI, I mean, you have a very good director there, Tulsi Gabbard, very good, and a very good, effective head of Mossad. But the fact of the matter is that they have come to a conclusion this will not be a very long war. Today, for example, just an hour ago, about 3,000 targets have been hit across Iran. So in my personal view, given the fact that the clerical regime, and please remember, nobody's at war with Iran. They're at war with the clerical regime. And when the clerical regime is weak, when the public support is weak, as happened to Shah of Iran in 1979, that's a good time to strike. So I don't expect this war to last very long. I expect the Strait of Hormuz to open again. And in fact, the Chinese are asking the Iranians, allow the Strait of Hormuz to open so as the spike in oil prices controlled. But remember, India has not shown any spike at all. And that is the important point that is being missed in all the pyrotechnics of politics. Thank you.
Well, yes, and that is obviously a significant point. You were escalating something we touched upon earlier as well when it comes to energy pricing. At least till now, we've not seen a major spike. But viewers, in the midst of the escalating tension in West Asia, which obviously we are discussing with our experts in detail, there is another Iranian naval vessel, remember, which faced technical problems while near the Indian waters. It was unable to continue safely, and the ship had requested permission to enter the Indian port, and that permission was granted. Now, the External Affairs Minister today said that India was acting on humanitarian ground. India allowed that particular vessel to dock at Kochi. External Affairs Minister explained that the decision prioritized basically the safety of the crew, emphasizing that India's approach was guided by humanity rather than any other considerations. The EAM also highlighted and underlined the international laws when obviously he spoke about India's move. Listen in.
Here's the situation. You had these ships. And we got a message from the Iranian side that one of the ships, which presumably was closest to us, to our waters at that point of time, wanted to come in to our port. They were reporting that they were having problems. So my recollection is this was on the 28th. On the 1st, we said, okay, you can come in. It took them a few days to sail in, and then they docked in Kochi, and the ship is there, obviously the people on the ship, a lot of them were young cadets, that is my understanding. They have disembarked. They are in a nearby facility. So we viewed this, look, this ship, or these ships, because there were two others as well. I mean, when they set out and came here, the situation was totally different. They were coming in for a fleet review, and then they got, in a way, caught on the wrong side of events. For us, when this ship wanted to come in, and that too in difficulties, I think it was the humane thing to do. I think we were guided by that principle. And in a sense of the other ships, one obviously had a similar situation in Sri Lanka, and they took the decision which they did, and one unfortunately didn't make it. I think where we really approached it from the point of view of, in a sense, of humanity, of other than, whatever the legal issues were, and I think we did the right thing.
So to give you a backgrounder into what exactly the EAM is talking about, now remember on Feb 28, viewers, Iran basically reached out to India requesting emergency docking permission for the naval ship. Now, after it developed some technical troubles while operating in the region, the vessel needed immediate docking permission despite a rapidly deteriorating geopolitical situation with the United States and Israel launching coordinated strikes. India approved that request within 24 hours, and that's exactly what the EAM is saying. That was done on humanitarian grounds. Approval came on March 1. On March 4, the Iranian warship had entered Kochi harbor. Now, the ship's 183 sailors who were also then accommodated by the naval facilities while the repairs and logistical support was being arranged. That's exactly what happened. Now, remember, but while it was this particular ship which we are mentioning managed to reach the Indian shore safely, another Iranian ship was not as fortunate. We are speaking of Iris Dana, which had completed the naval exercises near Visakhapatnam. It was sailing back towards Iran, and it was on March 4, roughly about 40 nautical miles south of Sri Lankan port, which is where the frigate was struck by a torpedo fired from the US submarine. The attack happened shortly after dawn. The vessel basically transmitted a distress signal reporting a massive explosion. By the time Sri Lanka rescue teams basically reached the coordinates, the ship had already sunk. Many of the soldiers back then were missing. Many of them had been taken to a hospital in Sri Lanka. My colleague Imran has been reporting from Sri Lanka. Take a look at these exclusive reports.
हम श्रीलंका के गौल शहर में हैं, जहां पर मेरे पीछे देख सकते हैं आप कि जो नेशनल हॉस्पिटल है और श्रीलंका का वहां पर गौल में जो ईरानियन शिप देना के जो 32 बचे हुए सेलर्स हैं उनका ट्रीटमेंट किया जा रहा है। यूएस ने अभी आज तुरंत एक ऐलान जारी किया है कि जो बचे हुए 32 सेलर्स हैं, 32 सेलर्स आयरनेस देना के, उनको वापस ईरान नहीं भेजा जाएगा। और उन्होंने श्रीलंका गवर्नमेंट से कहा कि तो दूसरा जहाज़ जिसको श्रीलंका ने कन्फिस्केट किया है और अपनी ट्रिंकल मोली जो शिपिंग यार्ड है वहाँ पर उसको सेफली रखा हुआ है, उस जो शिप है जो उसकी 208 जो क्रू मेंबर्स है उनको भी वापस ना ईरान भेजा जाए।
And the sinking of this particular ship, remember, viewers, had triggered a lot of political reactions. The opposition obviously was hitting out at the government back then. They were saying that the sailors there, they were honored guests of India. They argued that the attack had expanded the conflict dangerously close to India's maritime neighbors. But remember, even as the political debate was intensifying in Delhi, the timeline of events basically released, and they basically show that India had already been responding to the distress in the region. The Indian Navy had approved emergency docking for another ship, something which we had earlier highlighted. Remember, it was the 183 sailors aboard that particular vessel. India had effectively become a safe harbor in the middle of a rapidly escalating conflict. All right, with that, we'll be stepping into a short commercial break. News and updates on the other side. Please don't go anywhere.